Make a chicken Francaise style, gluten-free, using boneless chicken breast. And what I mean by style is the only thing that makes it Francaise is just the flour substitute. If this were, you could use flour if you don't want to use this mix, but it's gluten-free. That's brown rice flour and white corn flour. Eggs. Gonna well beat those eggs. I'm gonna season the chicken with some dried thyme, and the shallots and the garlic are gonna be sauteed to accompany the chicken. But I need something else to eat with it, which is not part of the recipe, but since I'm gonna eat this, I'm making myself some small red beans and some long grain brown rice. So that'll be a full meal for me. And I do have recipes for beans and for rice, so you can check them out or cook them the way you like them. Anyway, this is so simple, like this. You can use olive oil to saute in. You can use butter to saute in. I would prefer people using butter and oil, that way the butter doesn't burn. But if you like that nutty taste on butter, which a lot of people do, so do I, use straight butter. But I'm using straight olive oil because I have enough fat going into my system. So let's get started. So the first thing we have to do, we're going to season the chicken without dropping the food on the floor. Season the chicken with a nice salt and pepper mix. Make this up ahead of time. You always have it. If you like to put garlic on everything, throw in some garlic powder in there also. And you got to season both sides. If you're doing this, if you're doing steak, if you're doing anything, you got to fully season whatever it is. Now if you don't like salt, don't use any. But if you're making a dish like this, go without salt for a few days and then season this. It needs to taste good. And in the back there, we have a small skillet, which I'm going to put some olive oil in, and put the garlic and the shallots, and this, as you see, that should be ready at the same time the chicken is. It's on a low flame. We'll raise it up just a little. So now that you have the chicken seasoned, we're going to put the thyme. If you don't want to use thyme, don't use thyme. You don't have to use any herbs. I'm just putting the thyme on there this time. Very funny. Because that's what I'm looking for. So whatever flavors you like, that's what you do. There's no, you must do this or that to certain dishes. Sure, there are certain dishes that you have to follow the recipe somewhat, like if you're making beef bourguignon, there's onions, there's mushrooms. If you're making veal scallopini, marsala, of course you're going to put marsala wine. You're going to saute the veal in flour, put mushrooms. But as far as the seasonings go, you want to change up on the seasonings, go right ahead. So to keep your hands clean and not sticky, first I'm going to put the chicken in the non-gluten mix. It's just easier to work when you keep your hands free from all of this egg and being sticky. Now as far as the size of the chicken cutlets, you buy whatever you want. And of course, the thinner the chicken, the faster it'll cook. And how do you know when the chicken cutlet is done? Well, you're going to press on it. And when it's very firm, it's done. Not when you start to see cracks in it. When you start to see cracks in the chicken as it's cooking, like the flesh is separating, that means you cooked it a little bit too much. So that takes care of that part. And that's cooking in the rear. Then we're going to set up the skillet for the chicken. Now, the skillet's been sitting there for a minute or two. And I'm going to put the oil, olive oil. Remember, you can use butter, both, whatever you like. And just let this heat up just a little bit. And meanwhile, in the rear there, you have the shallots and the garlic cooking. And now don't forget to season that. Remember, everything has to be seasoned. Now my rice and my beans will not be ready for this dish, but they should be ready for the next dish I'm going to cook. So, and what I like about the Francaise style, meaning with the egg, kind of sears it. Keeps the moisture in. Now you don't have to use whole eggs. You can also do this with egg whites. This will start to cook very soon. Well, if you don't hear it, you can see the bubbles. It's starting to cook. Try to use this is a Calphalon. Try to use a non-stick pan. Look how easy that moves around, and it was put into a pan that really wasn't that hot. Quite often if you use a pan like this one, things might stick in it. I like the combination of shallots and garlic. Now if you don't have shallots, you could use onions. If you don't want the garlic, just use straight onions. So now we're going to lower this flame a little because it will take a little while for that chicken to cook through. And when you're going to turn it, you're going to turn it when you see a little more color than that. And it still has a long way to go. That's why I say lower the flame. Now I'm guessing we have enough color. So we take that nice chicken cutlet, turn it over. Now if you were giving this to somebody, you wouldn't have to tell them that it was gluten-free, because it has the same look as if you were using flour. So don't mention a word. Just tell them they're eating healthier. Put a lid on it. It'll keep the heat in instead of losing it, especially since we have a low flame, really low, because we want this to cook. If you want to use a temperature gauge on it, 155 degrees in the thickest part of the chicken breast, then you know you're done. If you're not used to the method of pressing on it and knowing, which takes a considerable amount of practice. After you cook about 1,000 pieces of chicken this way, you get the feel. I very rarely, I don't use, when I cook turkey breast or chicken, I don't use a thermometer. And I've never served a raw piece yet. So that's going to go for about another good maybe 10-15 minutes. The shallots and garlic are just about done. So you see how simple this one is, really. let's take a close look at the chicken. It's only been a few minutes since I put it in there. You see the bubbles very slight. Just cook it slow. There's no rush. And it won't be crispy on the bottom. You don't want to have a crispy hard piece of chicken on the bottom. You cook that slow. The shallots and the onions, they are done. That's going to go as a bed, because I don't want to cover that beautiful golden brown chicken. And then shallots, the chicken, and then some scallions on top for color. My colleagues frown upon me when I cook rice like this. Boil it instead of putting the correct amount of rice and slowly cooking it either in the oven or on a stovetop, so the rice absorbs all the water and is cooked like rice pilaf the way it should be. This is what I call the lazy man's way of doing it. But what I have in there are a lot of flavorings. I put some cinnamon, I put cumin, shallots, garlic, and when the rice is cooked, all I do is put it in a little strainer and I'm done. Not the right way, but the easy way. Now let's see how we're doing here. I don't know, it's been about maybe 8 minutes. Getting nice and firm, especially on the smaller side. You can see how I'm pressing down rather a lot of pressure. And I'm going to make a little something extra here. When my mother would bread something and there was leftover breadcrumbs and of course eggs, she would make these little like bread croquettes or pancakes. So I'm going to take some of this, the flour. I'm going to mix this up. That was not the leftover egg because it had chicken in it, even though it's okay since everything's going to be eaten together. And then just make this thick. Well, it's somewhat like a pancake, but it's going to be thick. So after I get this thick enough, because she hated to throw things out, don't waste anything. Just a drop more. So if you had leftover breadcrumbs and eggs, you could do this. And then just say to your kids, oh look, I made you a little special little pancake or croquette, a bread croquette. So that texture is good. So what do? We just put it in our hands and form a little, I'll make two from that. Nice and firm, not sticky. Yeah, the chicken will be ready before that. But anyway, it was just a little add-on something. I'm curious to see how these will come out because it's not made with breadcrumbs. Well, that's been another 10 minutes. This is done. Look how hard that is. So what I'm going to do is, let's see how these are coming. I'm going to raise the flame on these funny looking, and we're going to take this out right now, and I'm going to cut into it just to show you that it's done without cheating. My wife is going to have one of these for dinner. I'll give her this one. Now I wouldn't cut this normally, but going to cut it just to show you that the chicken is cooked. That was good. It fell on the chair. Now just, alright. I gotta relax. Don't do stupid stuff. So move this over here. Now look at the chicken. And I'm going to cut it like so because I'm going to present this to her with the rice in the middle. And if you can see the chicken, this is how I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the rice right here. So when she comes home, look at that. It's white and it is still juicy. Like I said, it's not cracked. So you know it was cooked perfect. So that takes care of that. And we'll look at these things in a few minutes. So let me finish this up the way I was going to do it in the first place. My rice is done. The beans aren't. You know, I put, like I said, cinnamon. I put some dried chilies in here too. And I put very little salt. And she's going to add salt to her dish. And bay leaves. I don't want the salt. So, there's the rice. And then we'll take the chicken I changed up the way I'm going to present this. Then we'll take the, let's see what we got here. Put the rice like so. This camera falls on the floor. I'll have to commit suicide. And there we have the plate, and we're going to add the shallots and the garlic. I also want to see them, so we'll put them right in the front, right in front of the rice. Now this was enough for two, so this goes here. Now if the red beans are ready, we'll sprinkle the red beans right around here. So that's done. Now we finish it off with the color all around the plate. What a nice meal she's walking home to. And what am I going to get? I'm going to get a plate of rice, that's it, with some beans. Now let's take a look at these little wannabe pancakes. They've been cooking long enough. Just by what I hear, I think they got a little burnt on the bottom. No, they didn't. They got crispy. So how's the texture? I'll take these out. I'll cut one. These are not light. They're very dense, but you know what? You really get the flavor of the brown rice flour and the white cornmeal. So I'm going to enjoy this. And I hope you enjoy the chicken recipe.